Witch Hat Aristotle. Witch Hat Atelier essay number 1. Video by Crysanth.
When Aristotle wrote the Nicomachean Ethics, he was thinking about Witch Hat Atelier. A big part of learning.
That's facts, actually. What y'all didn't even know about Aristotle or Witch Hat Atelier is that this actually, like, the original manga was actually written in like 1200.
Learning how to draw well is breaking the barrier between your mind and the pen. Being able to use the pen as if it were just an extension of your body and easily wield it to create the image you already have in your mind. At least, that's what I've heard from people who are better at drawing than I am. It makes sense to me though. Whenever I've gotten into any new creative hobby, I've found that there's always a barrier between what I want to express and my ability to use the means of doing so.
Yeah, that I was just talking about this with a friend the other day, the skill gap. Or the skill taste gap. I forgot what the actual word for it is called, but it's like a well-documented thing. It's low-key like the trial arc for any creative hobby, whether it's drawing, writing, making videos, making songs, whatever. There's going to be a point in time, usually pretty early on in your journey, where your ability to create lags way behind your taste. So you can understand what something good looks like. You can envision something good. You can envision a good story. You can envision a good song. You can envision a good drawing, a good video. But your ability to produce that is your skill level ability to produce that, unless you're like a prodigy, is not going to be up to where your taste is. And a lot of times that's like, if you can get past that hump, like that arc of any skill, you're going to automatically be in, like, I feel like the top 90%. Because, you know what I mean? 90% of people quit in that little space where they're like, fuck, I can see this, let's just use visual arts as the example, right? Since we're talking about Witch Hat Atelier, that's the closest relation. I can see this picture I want to draw in my head, but I can't make my hands move to draw that picture. If you can get past that gap, basically just power through it and accept the L and then get good, then, you know what I mean? You have outdone 90% of people that tried to approach whatever it is you were trying to approach.
A lot of developing a skill seems to be breaking down that barrier. I guess the main creative thing I do is writing, whether it be fiction or media analysis and essays, and I've noticed over the last few years of doing this how it really has gotten easier to get my ideas onto the page. One of the
Especially with, I remember back in Teddy Slump video essay arc, by the end of that arc, when I was producing arguably some of my best essays, bruh, that shit, like, it got to the point where I wasn't even tripping about essays in school no more, because like the essay format was just like that to me. It just like came off the dome. With that said, that did kind of like skew the way I look at writing in general. And so now when I try to get into more creative writing or just, you know, do other things with writing, that is a lot different. It's a lot harder just because it is different. But yeah, after you go like 2 or 3, it's kind of hard to go 2 or 3 years doing something without getting it at least slightly nice. I miss the essay arc a little bit. Me too, man. I do too. Blame YouTube, bruh.
best feelings of any passion is getting into the flow state, where your hands move near perfectly in line with your mind as the thoughts come by. Entering this zone has gotten easier as I've developed my own writing skill, and I've noticed it with other passions as well. I remember how awkward and clunky it felt using an editing software.
What editing? Oh, is this film? What is this? I've never seen this software before. I don't know, bro. That boy using like a hidden editor. Editing too, though. Editing, like I've always said, editing is just a feel. Like it's literally just timing, bro. Once you get the feel, you kind of, you know, going from the video in your head to the video on the screen becomes a lot easier.
For videos, or a DAW for producing music the first time. The first few times. Maybe the first lots of times. But a big
music, well, I don't know. Maybe it's just because that's not what I really do. But music and visual arts, I probably put them up on a pedestal because it's something that I don't do. It's always weird too, because I have a tendency to assume that like I'll see someone who's really good with visual arts, right? Let's use visual arts as an example, or music too. You know what I mean? There's kind of a trade-off that's come in like the modern world the modern media landscape. Let's say that, where I think, unfortunately, even one of the best skills you can have is the ability to produce videos or produce content, because, you know, the means of promotion now are just so flooded with people who that's their thing. And something I see a lot of like musicians and visual artists run into is that when you develop a skill like this that doesn't translate one-to-one into creating content, it becomes hard to promote your work against, you know, people who did develop those skills. And so it's like, even when I'm trying to backtrack and learn different skills, I am glad that I spent the past 6 years learning about and how to create content, because for better or worse, that has become the means of promotion in this modern arc of media.
Part of being able to develop those skills is building the kind of muscle memory of using the interface to more seamlessly translate the ideas in your head to the most fire trap beat or a collection of under 10-second anime clips to avoid copyright. This is something that Witch Hat
Yo, dead ass, bruh. Yo, yo, the anime copyright clip shit is too. I can literally look at a clip and like time it in my head now and see if I'm finna get copyrighted, bruh. Like, I'll be like, nah, that's too long. That's too short. That audio is too loud, bruh. I got like the copyright ghoul in my soul, bruh. It's kind of sad, but you know, you got to develop it.
represents and explains very well, and something Aristotle accurately applies to all skills. In Book 2 of the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle
Ooh, I thought he was about to say Book 2 of Witch Hat, Atelier. I was finna have to pause the video. All right, the Nicomachean Ethics. Fair disclaimer, I've never read Aristotle. I think I'm vaguely familiar with some of his shit from the Philosophy 101 class I took like 4 years ago. But yeah, that's about it as far as Aristotle goes for me.
famously compares a musician learning how to play the lyre, a builder learning how to build, and Coco from Witch Hat Atelier learning how to make magic.
He did do that though. I do remember studying that. Like, Witch Hat was in that book.
Through this comparison, he highlights that each of these distinct skills involve the same learning process, a process required to master any skill. Starting from a place of no knowledge and no experience, you learn what you're supposed to do and you practice.
That is one thing I like about Witch Hat too. We've talked about it a couple times now as we've watched the episodes, but you can tell that Shirahama, right? That was the author's name. Shirahama, as someone who has more or less mastered her domain of creativity, that being like visual arts, manga, ink drawing, whatever you want to call it, as someone who has basically mastered their domain, like, she has sort of a full scope view of sort of the creative learning process, right? And it's been really interesting following this story because we get to see like her take on you know, the beginners, the intermediates, the advanced, because to me at least, a lot of Witch Hat Atelier, or at least the magic system, does read as like an analog for, you know, creative work and getting to a point where you're like nice with your creative work. I mean, yeah, her art is magic, and the magic in her art is art. So you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to like, oh, you're going to level up your skills, you know, solo leveling style, or, you know, by getting in the most fights. It is a skill that you just have to sit down and grind and do. You know what I mean? Which I think is interesting.
Practice, you start off unsteady and unsure. You have to consciously decide on every action, every movement, but by repeating a process enough times, it eventually becomes habitual. Not necessarily mindless, but easier and faster. What constitutes a greater mastery of any skill is the ability to more effortlessly perform the correct action. To be
Right, I forgot. She was cranking out spells. I forgot that was her thing in the beginning. She could crank out the spells wild fast.
able to convert an idea to an effective expression of that idea through whatever medium, without the shakiness and deliberation you feel when you are first learning something. You can see how Witch Hat Atelier inspired Aristotle throughout the story, but
Yo, this nigga funny as fuck. He's saying this shit dead. Like, he said that shit so committed to the bit. There was a second in my head where I was like, oh yeah, shit, Aristotle probably was inspired by Witch Hat, now that I think about it.
particularly early on, where Coco's struggles with drawing magic circles, slow, deliberating, unsteady, are contrasted against her skill with cutting cloth.
Bro, and I didn't even peep that, but that is the one of the worst, or no, I won't even say worst. I was literally just talking about this the other day though. it's a weird feeling having like reached a certain level of efficiency in one creative field and then trying to go into another and starting over from zero, right? Because it's like you feel like you want it to be like a video game, right? Where all your skills kind of get XP boosts at once. And you know what I mean? You get this well-rounded boost of skill in everything that you need. But it is not like that, bruh. Oh my God. Okay, here come the ReZero fans. It is not like that though. Like going from one domain and realizing, oh shit, I have to suck again. That is an experience, going from one domain to another.
A skill which she has had years of practice with and is thus faster at, with cleaner lines. Her hands feel as if they move on their own because she has broken the barrier between what she wants to do and what she can do, uniting her mind and body. One of the most important things for witches to learn is the ability to quickly come up with the right spell to draw, and draw it using muscle memory while hiding the process under your cloak.
Which is crazy, right? Like, you know, I know I was frying a got at the beginning of the season, but I think we can all agree that she is, from what I have seen, she is like ahead of the curve. I don't know if she's ahead of the curve or if Keyfree's students kind of suck on the low, but I assume she is ahead of the curve. You know, she probably pushes herself a little bit harder being from the house of 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 or whatever. But yeah, the fact that she already kind of got that like muscle memory, I can do a spell without looking at it type thing. I gotta respect it. I gotta respect it.
Process requires an extensive background of both study and practice, which allows quick but accurate understanding of the situation, choice of the correct spell to apply in the situation, and ability to wield tools to cast the spell. A process that rhymes pretty exactly with Aristotle, and one that you can surely translate to any skill. What Aristotle writes about is literally what witches aspire to achieve. It's the flow state, it's hexis, it's magic, and obviously it's how the author of the manga feels about her own process. The learning how to be an artist metaphor is very upfront. Not only are the characters literally learning how to draw, but the manga even begins with an illustration of the hand drawing it, breaking.
Oh, okay, so I do remember seeing this. Yeah, so interesting. I remember seeing this when I read the first chapter, but I feel like this does kind of add a dynamic. Because I think the way they tried to translate this in the anime, the exposition we got in the beginning of the anime was clearly from our verse, right? The exposition was something along the lines of like singers, dancers, astronauts. These are all things, you know, that people can master. And in this world, or I forgot what it was, but it brought up like, I remember it bringing up astronauts or scientists or something that, as far as we know, doesn't exist in Coco's world. And so I do still think we're getting like this frame story where, you know what I mean? This is very, very clearly supposed to represent like the development, in this case, of a visual artist into, I mean, I don't think it's glazed to call Shirahama a master.
The fourth wall to reach out and beat the reader of the head with a command to remember.
Yeah. Okay. Damn, that manga. I mean, one thing I really appreciate about the manga art, and I think I've said this before, but the manga art looks like it belongs in a book from Europe in like 1802. You feel what I'm saying? Like, this doesn't look like typical Japanese manga art. It looks like the illustrations you'd see in like a Narnia book or something. Like, I can like, you niggas don't read books, so I don't know if y'all be able to relate to this, but I can like smell the art style here, bro. This smells like an old ass book with like tan yellow pages that you find in your school library that ain't no one read in 65 years. And the pages are like kind of crinkly and stiff, but like that kind of makes it more fire when you like flip them junks. And the book is like mad small. Like this smells like, I don't know. This smells like a old ass book, bro. That I'm tweaking, bro. That nigga looking at stuff talking about it smells like a book. What is he saying? Let's move on.
Someone is drawing this art as the characters talk about learning how to draw. One of the main points of the story is set up in tandem with that meta drawing panel on the very first page, where Witch Hat's opening narration.
Yeah. This shit right here is an athlete, always an athlete, even from birth. I mean, I don't think they have track and field in Witch Hat.
Questions whether various types of...
And I knew they had a fucking astronaut, bro. I knew I wasn't tweaking. Look at Tedia over here hitting her dance. Hold on. Fan theory. Are these all are these all alternate versions of where these characters would have been in our world? Look at it, right? All right, up here. This is Orugio. I know you see the visual similarities. Okay, that's Unk. That's Orugio.
Narration questions whether various types.
We got Atelier as a dancer
of skilled.
I'm gonna say this is probably 𝙏𝙖 up here, you know, exploring space or something.
People are.
This probably represents this is probably like Coco. I'm assuming this probably represents Coco. What is this, a brush buddy? What is this? That's a fox. I want to see this fox thing in the anime. We haven't seen this fox thing.
Born that way. It's pretty.
I could see 𝙏𝙖 as an athlete actually. If you ever meet like real serious athletes, they both have that sort of like, she has that like athlete drive. You know what I mean? She gives me the vibes of a 6th grade AAU player that really, really wants to make the league. I don't know if y'all have ever encountered those type growing up, but yeah.
Too much common sense to understand that no, people are not born astronauts or athletes. But what about witches? AKA, what about artists, as the rest of the manga motions towards?
Yeah, I don't think people can inherently be born, you know, in any role. You can be born with things that help you in those roles. You know what I mean? Obviously, if I was 6'8", you know, I'd probably be living a different life, or I'd probably be more predisposed to getting into athletics. But, you know, there's some 6'8" niggas out there. I remember I saw a nigga that was 6'7" working at Six Flags, man. I'll never forget that. Actually, it was probably closer to 7 foot. That nigga was huge. Don't start doing that dumbass 6'7" shit in my chat either. Niggas will get banned.
Require some sort of natural magical spirit to be good at spreading wonder and joy, to be good at sharing beauty with the rest of humanity? No, the obvious but effective point replies. It's a skill you just have to practice like any other. What might not be so obvious to many is that this is deliberate placement in conversation, or perhaps even debate, with Aristotle. Witch Hat expands on its opening narration with a world in which people are taught that being a witch does require a natural inclination for magic. You are born fit for it or not, while as we learn, in reality, anyone can do it. Anyone
can do that shit. That's what pisses me off about it so much. They got the nerve to just lie to people.
Aristotle, of course, believes that everyone has to work to develop their skills, and specifically disagrees with the idea that anyone is born truly excellent at anything. However, in politics, he spends a lot of time explaining that different people are born with different societal roles that they would best be able to fulfill. While one can take their life down any direction they choose, there is one best path for them. Someone is born with the traits inclining them to the life of an artisan, and this determines that it would be best for this person to develop skills as an artisan. It is most...
I think this is Aristotle's philosophy more than, you know, the philosophy of Witch Hat. I mean, if anything, Witch Hat kind of argues against that, right? I feel like, I don't know if I agree with that philosophy from Aristotle. I mean, like I said, obviously there are some, you know, especially in physical things like sports, there are some things you can be born with that'll give you an edge, and art as well. But I feel like that's so marginal. You know what I mean? Like I could have all the talent in the world to become like the best artist, but if I never pick up that pen, does it really matter? You know what I mean? Like even if I secretly all this time have like a super hand that can like photocopy anything I think. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I do think it kind of goes like this, all right? At the very, 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 very tip of anything, any skill, you have the people who, you know, have insane talent and insane hard work and just so happen to be blessed and cross those two things. That's going to be the best at anything, right? Just like I remember I went to school. I went to an all boys school. But when we had track practice, our sister school would come over and like we would both use the track, right? And there were these two girls who I ran with. I think both of them might be Olympians now. I know one of them is Olympian for sure. And then I'm not sure about the older sister. But like, and apart from their insane talent for track, they were otherwise normal girls. But like when you see someone who just kind of like has it in them, it's almost like some anime shit, bro. You know that trope in anime where where it's like, oh, like, yeah, I'll never reach that level. Like there's levels to this shit, right? You know what I mean? Like you can kind of see, it's weird up close. You know what I mean? You don't really pay much attention to it, or yeah, the NPC glaze, dead ass. It's the NPC glaze where it's like, you know, you're sitting there, right? And you're watching this girl smoke a bunch of dudes in the 200 meters. And you're like, okay, like there really is levels to this shit, right? So at the very, very top of any skill, there is going to be those people like those two Olympian girls who just have like the insane skill and the insane talent at like the top 0.5%. But that other 99 or that other 9.5% of the top 99.5% in my eyes is mainly going to be like a mix of, you know, some luck and then people who just were able to dedicate the most time to any given skill. And so like I really think with time alone and working smart and having as much time as you're able to have, that can get you in that top 9.5%. And I feel like that's all you really need.
Attuned to their natural function and thus easiest to learn, most fulfilling to master, and best for the society they live in. This theory is at least kind of true. People are born with varying traits that could make them more or less adept at different skills, but some of the major ways Aristotle takes it end up being problematic. Aristotle is a little too uncritical of ancient Greek society, and assuming every role he observed.
That's what I was thinking, bro. I was thinking like, yo, it's crazy. I'm sure Aristotle fucks with this philosophy, because he gets to be the philosopher dude, like chilling in a robe, like, you know what I mean? Waxing poetic about society all day, living a relatively easy life compared to everyone else. I'm not finna fuck with this philosophy if I'm out there fighting the Spartans, bro. Like, you know what I mean? It's easy to say like everyone has their set role when you're lucky enough to get like the perfect role in society. Oh yeah, I was supposed to have been here all along, bro. I was made for this shit, bro. Where it's like, okay, bro.
For society to function, he ends up arguing that every spot in his society's hierarchy was justified naturally, and that everyone would have natural inclinations making them fit for a spot on this hierarchy, from being a king to being a slave. Inclinations one has from birth, especially
good shit,
regarding
Aristotle.
Different levels of rationality.
W slavery, like what's going on?
Despite Aristotle also arguing that all humans have the same natural essence of reason and ability to think politically, which sets us apart from other animals. He still ends up claiming that slaves and women are meant to be subservient and unfit to be liberated.
That's y'all goat, bro. That's who y'all be making the marble busts of. Which is like, again, I feel like you only develop this mindset by, again, hitting that like perfect position. You know what I mean? Like everyone wants to think like, oh yeah, bro. Or everyone who is comfortable wants to think like, yeah, bro, like this is how it should be. When it's like, nah, you probably just lucked into this role, which isn't bad. You know, there is nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is. But like, imagine writing a whole philosophy basically being like, nah, bro, like, no, this really how shit should be, bro.
That the people making up the lower classes are meant to perform nothing but manual labor and unfit for the politics
this is like the
or art
antithesis.
enjoyed and created by.
This is the antithesis of kind of the message of Witch Hat. I mean, Witch Hat, if we're looking at the pointed caps are moving real Aristotle-like when you think about it, bruh. They're moving real Aristotle-like. Nobody understood that people are actually equal. I think a good amount of societies across the globe at least were better than thinking, oh yeah, I 100% deserve to be here. There might not be much documentation because the societies that we're writing were built up on, you know, the backs of a lot of inequality. But I'm sure there were numerous societies that had more equitable structure than what Aristotle was working with. I don't think the ideas of equality, the way we view it now, is probably a bit more radical, but the base idea isn't nothing that crazy.
by the leisured. Entrenched in Aristotle's politics is a conservative assumption that many people in underprivileged classes belong there, and a belief that they were born unfit for greater power or standard of living. In Witch Hat Atelier, the idea that the only people who can acquire the skill of magic are those born with some sort of natural aptitude is a lie perpetuated by a privileged class with the purpose of maintaining
literal
a
straight
monopoly
cap,
on
bro.
power.
That's the shit that pisses me off, bro. Like if they did like, okay, like mage exams, you know what I mean? That would still be kind of like, you know, standardized tests, whatever. But that would be better than what they have now. What they have now is literal cap, bro. It's like the biggest scam in anime history, bro. Thousands of people involved in holding up this societal scam. Where like, at least if they did like, okay, we do mage exams when you're 6. That would also be some bullshit. But at least you're, to an extent, you can make the argument you're judging based off aptitude. In Witch Hat, it's literally just, are you in or are you out from birth? With, you know, of occasional, very, very occasional. We've really only seen one instance so far of someone getting into the in group via the grace of someone already in the in group. And that's Coco and, you know, obviously the grace of 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠. But yeah, like it's hard for me to take the point of cap serious when as many problems probably exist with the brim caps. At least they're not capping, ironically enough, to the whole fucking world.
It's nominally about preserving peace and safety, and I'll talk about that too in a bit, but functionally, it's a system that creates an underclass of people with less power, hidden away from a skill that could be extremely fulfilling to them. Embedded in the very premise of this series is the realization that there are probably so many Cocos in this world who could be brought so much joy with the freedom to study magic, and so many others who could be brought joy by the creations of these many Cocos. Instead, all this joy is held behind a lie that they were not born for magic. Aristotle does a good job explaining the process of developing a skill and the feeling of mastery, but he makes a major mistake limiting people's potential to invisible natural paths in an effort to justify his own society's inequality. It then takes 2,000 years of Western philosophy for John Stuart Mill to respond and say that by helping the lower classes get educated and acquire skills, you can actually increase their potential.
So, you know, like 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 and John Stuart Mill were actually tight. This is like canon. Yo, you know what I just peeped? I'm not going to hold you. Actually, let me chill. But like, does 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 like, it could be some anime shit. It could be some anime shit that I'm overthinking. It could be some anime shit. Okay, I was just sitting here looking at him. And I feel like he might have like a Sharingan or something, bro. Or like a magical eye. Cause like, notice we never actually seen both of this nigga's eyes at one time, ever. Like it's always on some one-eyed weird shit, bro. That is 100% what I was gonna say. Cause I was looking at his glasses. I was like, okay, it could just be a fashion choice, whatever. You know what I mean? Hair over the eyes. But I don't know. He probably got some magic bullshit under there.
Beyond being trapped in poverty, and in doing so boosts.
Like, do you know how much effort it takes to get a thick ass strand of your hair under your fucking glasses? He probably got like a magic eye or something. It's still an anime at the end of the day, bro. It's still an anime at the end of the day.
The common good. It's not exactly reasonable to see someone as naturally unfit for roles that require greater study if there's never been a library in their neighborhood, if their economic conditions require them to focus on work, or in the case of the outsiders or unknowing of Witch Hat Atelier, they have never.
Like, look at this nigga, bro. Nigga never revealing the eye. Nah, I need the 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 eye reveal now. I would look it up, but I feel like that might be a spoiler. Watch it be forbidden magic. I'm thinking, what if he got like one of those like memory erasers under his glasses, bro? Like he got those like those little like tendrils.
Been given access to the proper means and are actively prevented from doing
that.
so.
Oh, imagine he got that under his glasses.
It is in the same century that
It's a
existentialists
spoiler?
began to posit that, rather than
bet.
believing in some kind of inborn essence that defines how a person should live, the door is open to seeing things the other way around. That one is defined by the way they choose to live, and they can choose whatever path they want. A person is not born a witch or fit to be a witch. A person makes themselves a witch by studying and performing magic. When dealing with Witch Hat's central metaphor, existentialism is literally correct. And in our world, it seems the most relevant as well. Is there even a way of knowing what your natural, best, most fulfilling path could be? Can you?
Nope. And that's one of my, I mean, I understand the study of philosophy. I do. But to a large extent, I only take it marginally serious. I think it's good for stuff like stories and exploring thought. But a lot of times in practice, it really is like just how you apply it. You know what I mean? Let's say there are natural rules that we're all meant to fulfill. There's literally no way of knowing what that role is. Same thing with like free will and destiny. There's literally no way to know if destiny is a thing, except for hindsight. And so like in that regard, it can't really exist until it does, on like some Schrodinger's destiny shit. And so that's why I only take it with, you know, at least in terms of everyday life for me, that's why I take it with like a marginal level of seriousness. I just find things that kind of work for me at the time for what I'm trying to do and rock with those.
Really know if you'd have a better life as a doctor or an artist, if you'd succeed more as an engineer or a musician before you try any of these options. So should you try to figure out your natural path, assuming it does even exist, or should you just recognize what you already care most about? Many paths for many people might still be blocked by economic concerns, but the direction you may take your life and the hobbies you may pursue are far less rigid than they have been in previous centuries. And us common folk do not find ourselves legally and politically barred from artistic pursuits like we see in Witch Hat Atelier. Not only is there less social restriction, but there are also abundant resources to assist in developing any skill. The internet has made it easier.
One thing, I was about to say the same shit. The internet has made, at least for most creative hobbies, it is like the internet has become too OP, bruh. Where like, if you took like a smooth 3 months, you could like make a damn near studio quality song just on your phone with the right applications. And so, you know, the internet, like if they had the internet in Witch Hat, it would have been over, bro. The lid would have been blown off of this witch shit. All it would have taken was one nigga to look at the bottom of some witch shoes, post that shit online. That shit is viral. Nigga, if they had the internet in Witch Hat Atelier, I'm making water dragons tomorrow and pulling up on Keyfree and running my 1v1. Using his spell. He gonna be like, where you get that from? I'm gonna show him a screenshot of his own shit, bruh. I traced it on the paper.
Than ever to discover helpful guides to learn whatever skill you could possibly want, especially artistic ones. If something is magic to you, you can go learn how to cast spells right now, easier than ever. But the most important thing is simply that you have to actually practice. No one was born a witch, no one was born an artist. You can become one now through action, but you have to drag your pen across paper or whatever.
I do kind of like that, right? We haven't gotten that trope, and I don't know if we will, but we haven't gotten that trope in Witch Hat yet of just like the natural, or not even the natural. We've arguably seen some naturals. You can argue a god, it might be more based on her family and connections and, you know, the resources she had access to as a kid. But we haven't really seen that trope of the character who just gets it, right? You know, like the and it's not a bad trope. I do kind of like it. But you know, like the Higuruma sort of trope, right? Where it's like this person wasn't even in this world, but then they just walk in and they got it. And Higuruma's probably a bad example. He arguably was good with being a sorcerer because of, you know, the technicalities of the Jujutsu world do kind of mirror legality and its technicalities to an extent. But like, yeah, that type of character, I guess you could say like a Takaba fits in there too. But the trope of the character who just jumps in and is an instant prodigy, we haven't seen that for in Witch Hat yet. We've seen, you know, levels to this shit. We've seen skill levels. And I think if there's something I want to see more, I do want to see more middle ground, like more middle ground witches, right? I want to see more witches that are on their path. Because so far, we've only seen beginners and masters. Closest we've seen to the middle ground is like a got, and I don't really know where to scale her. I don't know how close she is or isn't to being a master, because we haven't even seen like 16, 17, 18-year-old witches, or, you know, early 20 witches, you know, who have gotten past that beginner mark, you know, maybe have 2 or 3 or 4 tests under their belt and are really starting to put shit together. And so I do think I do think we're due for like a more expansive view of witches as a whole. But I do like that this show seems pretty consistent in its argument that none of this shit is natural talent at all.
Equivalent, and you will have to do it for a while before it feels natural.
I don't know, the natural would mesh with the narrative well, or be a cool dichotomy. I could see that. It might be cool like once to see like one character that really does it. But even then, it's like, how would it really stand out? You know what I mean? It's different in like, you know, you think of a lot of anime where like power is based off of like some intrinsic amount of mystical energy you have. You know what I mean? Oh, if you have more nen than this guy, then you have the ability to do more with your nen ability. If you have more cursed energy than this guy, then you know what I mean, your attacks will hit harder. You can make more shikigami, whatever. But Witch Hat, it doesn't really have like an intrinsic pool of energy that you're drawing from. It's just skill. And so, you know what I mean? Like skill, again, there is, like what the video was saying, there is some intrinsic level of skill that people have, but it's usually never something so deep that it's like, oh yeah, this person is just so naturally skilled that they could just pick up a pen and boom, they're there. So yeah, I do find that compelling in Witch Hat, the fact that they don't really do that whole like
where you can properly create what you imagine. Make an effort to practice casting spells.
Like I wouldn't even consider Coco a prodigy. I would just consider her someone who's like really, really, really dedicated. You know what I mean? Like she's learning fast because she wants to learn fast, and she's pushing herself, and she's driven to because her mom's life is on the line. You know what I mean? There's the argument that like a lot of the world's greatest athletes, and this is kind of switching now, like this has switched the past couple decades as training has become more and more expensive. But there's the argument that a lot of the world's greatest athletes tend to come from underprivileged backgrounds because a lot of times athletics will be their only way out. And so you can have 2 kids born with, you know, the same innate skill level for, let's say, whatever sport, right? Basketball, football, soccer, whatever. You could have 2 kids born with the same innate skill level. If kid 1 has all these options of what he can do in his life apart from athletics, then, you know what I mean, he's probably not going to chase that as hard. He's probably not going to sharpen that skill as much as kid 2, where it's like, oh, you know, this athletic shit is all they got. And so I think Coco is is less of an example of a prodigy and more of like, nah, she has that drive where like, you know, her loved one's life is literally on the line, actively, time ticking probably, right? And it's fucking with her mental too. But, you know, I think she's just like overly driven.
Have to get used to the motion in order to break down the barrier between your mind and your pen. The way you were born is likely stopping you way less than your own choice to do nothing. Of course, in Witch Hat, the reasons for preventing the majority of the population from practicing magic has a bit more to it than what I've discussed here, but it relates much more to the writings of another philosopher, and I've decided to put my thoughts about that in another video. Thanks for watching. I've been uploading kind of
I enjoyed
infrequently.
this video. This was heat.